Your Daily 180, 180 seconds of pure Bible study.
Thank you for being with us today for this, your Daily 180 Bible study. We're in the book of James, chapter 2, and we began in verse number 1. We're going to drop down today to verse 7 through 12. We're talking about the sin of favoritism, and we began yesterday looking at the idea about how insane it is. I mean, it's inconsistent to show favoritism. It doesn't make sense. As a matter of fact, showing favoritism toward the rich, those are the very people who were oppressing the Christians in the first century. But he goes on and he makes another point. In verse number 7, he says, "Do they not blaspheme that noble name by which you are called?" Some of these very people that they would show favoritism to, they're the very ones who were enemies of Christianity. Why would you do that? Well, we made the point yesterday. It's because of selfishness. It's because of envy. It's looking out for number one, trying to get something from them, either in the way of their approval or who knows what. But it is inconsistent with the Christian life. But he goes on furthermore, and he says that when we show favoritism, we have transgressed the law. Look at beginning at verse 8. "If you really fulfill the royal law, according to the Scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, you do well. But if you show partiality, you commit sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. For whoever shall keep the whole law and yet stumble in one point, he is guilty of all. For he who said, 'Do not commit adultery,' also said, 'Do not murder.' Now if you do not commit adultery, but you do murder, you have become a transgressor of the law." Now I want you to understand what he's saying here. He talks about the royal law. We have an obligation to love our fellow man. As a matter of fact, back in Matthew chapter 22, beginning at verse number 36, there Jesus lays down what's most important. As a matter of fact, and sometimes Jesus referred to it as the first and great commandment. We call it the greatest commandment. It's really what life is all about. Listen to what Jesus has to say. "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." That's what life is all about. Love God and love your fellow man. Now, every commandment you find in the Bible somewhere falls under the umbrella of those two commands. And when we show favoritism, we're violating those two commands. Join us again tomorrow for your Daily 180.